We live.
We live, season 2.
We back. How about that?
We made it.
We made it.
That's the best way to do it. We made it in one piece.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Up. Is this an upgrade?
Yeah, man. I think so.
Okay.
I think so. I like it. It's subtle, and people can actually pay attention to us and still stuff. What's in the background?
Yeah. So we back in the garage.
Yeah.
But we have moved around a little bit.
Again.
Yeah. We had a lot going on in the background of the other videos, so we said let's switch it up and do something simple this time around. So
yeah. I think it looks great.
I like it. It. Y'all let us know.
Yeah, give us some feedback, please.
Yeah, give us some feedback. Yeah. I had a tree. It wasn't a real tree, but
Joey just kicked it.
Joey kicked my tree out.
Literally, we just kicked it outside. Office space.
That's right. All right. Season 2, man. Maybe an introduction if anybody's new.
Yes. So this is the first episode of season 2.
Yep.
We just concluded season 1. Well, we just released the last episode maybe 3 weeks ago.
That's right.
As far as recording time frame, did we record that maybe 2 months ago?
Yeah, I think so.
This October 19th, I guess, today.
Middle October.
Somewhere. It's October something on a Sunday. How about that?
Yeah, we were just looking before we started recording, and I'm thinking this has got to be close to a year from when we did season 1, the first episode.
Yes.
So we look back in November 10th was the date we recorded season 1. So not quite a year, but here we are. Almost in exactly the same spot.
Yeah, that's right. We started off in this spot.
That's right.
You want to share the other anniversaries?
What you got?
Yeah, come on, man.
Oh, man. We're not quite there yet, but you talking about
it's
5
close,
years?
Close.
5 years. So October 27, 2019, actually October 26 was the last time I had a drink.
That's right. So
it's almost 5 years of
that's huge.
Yeah,
this is celebration. Let's get some wine.
Let's turn up. No. I've talked about my story, but I set out on this health journey. It has definitely become a spiritual journey. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to just give it 6 months and just kind of see what I could do, what kind of improvements I could make. And that was one of the choices that I made a choice. I said, you know what, I'm going to try the life of no alcohol.
That's right.
I'm going to give it 6 months, and 6 months is about to be 5 years. So
that's amazing.
October 27th will be 5 years.
That's amazing, man.
Nothing I set out to do intentionally. Yeah. But yeah, big deal, apparently.
It is a huge deal, man. I mean, think about it. Like, you got to think about it at your height, at the height of how much I was drinking, how often I was drinking. Did I ever think I'd get to a point where I'd go a year without alcohol?
Never.
So man, it's awesome.
Yeah. So 5 years of that. A lot of 5 years. We hit 5 years of the Fast Way Out on October 1st. So we launched the first group on October 1st, 2019.
That's right. And for those who don't know what the Fast Way Out is.
Yeah, Fast Way Out is a group that Joey and I started, really based on our health stories, our different transformations. His story is incredible as well. But we got together and we decided to put together a group and educate some folks on the health and spiritual benefits of fasting. So it was October 2019. It was just an idea. I almost decided not to do it.
I'm here, man.
I know, man. But you always push me to do stuff. So it was October 1st. We had a group of probably 30 people, and folks were interested in fasting. And so we just called it the Fast Way Out. That's right. That was that. And so that's kind of grown into nonprofit organization.
Yes.
So we're just sharing the message, and it's been a catalyst, I think, to the podcast. So maybe you talk about how we ended up doing the podcast. So what was that transition?
Yes, sir. So for those who haven't seen it, it was about, like October of last year, early October of last year. I was actually at church, and we were doing some form of a Bible study, and they had us kind of tabled off, so we were in small groups. And I was seated next to someone who has a podcast.
Plug.
Yeah, Latrice. The Lift Her Up podcast, which is doing amazing.
Yeah.
They went from like 100 subscribers to 1,000 subscribers within a couple months. Like, wow. She's doing, her content is amazing. It really is. It's really good. So I was sitting next to her, and her boyfriend does all of the AV work for her. So she sits, she basically shows up, she does her content, and he does everything from there as far as the recording, the editing, the posting, everything. So I was asking her a few questions about like, how does it feel? Because it's a monologue, you know, so she didn't have the option as far as batting it back and forth in the conversation. And I also was asking him questions about the AV stuff. And then I told her, I was like, you know, I always wanted to do one. And she said, this the most dangerous sentence ever. You should do it. you should do it. And
little did you know.
Yeah, little did she know.
I was waiting on an idea from somebody at the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I was waiting on an idea.
I believe I shot you a text that night.
Yeah.
I shot him a text message that night, and I was like, hey, man, I got an idea.
I was like, yes.
And the next day we talked about it, and we've been off to the races.
It's been a sprint.
Yeah. This is definitely a story of, man, we're not ready, but we're getting started, and we're going to figure it out on the way.
That's right.
Because, you know, what is it? Paralysis by analysis, or analysis paralysis, however you want to say it. I mean, you're sitting there and you're trying to figure things out, but you're not moving.
Yeah.
You know, you're not causing any movement. So we started movement, and we haven't fallen on our face, but we learned a lot along the way.
That's right.
Hence the microphone, so people can hear us.
Some mics now.
Yes, yeah.
We've had some temperature challenges along the way.
Yes, absolutely.
I think we got it all worked out.
So yes. And now we here.
Now we here. We got some new gear.
Yes.
In new gear. How about that?
That's right. Dr. Seuss made an appearance. So we got the J&J podcast shirts with the website at the bottom, joeyandjeremy.com. And we have the one of the Fast Way Out shirts.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Available on the website, thefastwayout.com.
Yes.
On the shop.
Yes, absolutely.
Again, nonprofit. So
yep, money's gonna do good. We've actually talked about like sponsoring teams, sports, like youth leagues for next year. So yeah, money's gonna go back into the community somehow. Yeah. Somehow for sure.
What are we about? Why are we here? What are we? What's the point of this? Like right as you take a sip,
right?
Need a
big speed.
I drop a heavy question like
that. You about to make me spit on my shirt.
So when people say, what's your podcast about? What's your answer to that?
Well, the first thing, as a precursor, I tell them it's a Christian podcast.
Okay.
Because, you know, you got two guys of faith. And we're talking about health as far as mental, spiritual, physical, but it's all from a perspective of a believer.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we could be talking about finance, but it's all going to be from a perspective of a believer.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing I tell them. It's a Christian podcast. I tell them about the three pillars of health that we just explained.
Mind, body, spirit.
Yeah, mind, body, and spirit. I tell them that they're going to see some amazing transformations because you got your story. My story is kind of interwoven a little bit throughout the entire first season.
Sure.
You got John Hefney's story, and then you got Sammy Drayton's story.
Yeah.
So yes, I kind of go through that, but my quick spiel is like, hey, it's a Christian podcast, but we talk about, you know, mental health, physical health, spiritual health.
Yeah.
And from there, really, once I get that out, they already have questions. Yeah. You know, so it starts a pretty good dialogue.
That's a good way to sum it up. And it took me a long time to even be able to put, you know, what are y'all about? Mm-hmm. So I like the pillars, the mind, body, spirit.
Yes.
Discipleship comes up a lot.
Yes.
So yeah. So ultimately, make disciples is the goal.
That's right.
Really should be the goal of any Christian organization, I would think. Make disciples. So if you're in a group that's not doing that, you may want to check. No, I won't say that. But
tread lightly.
Tread lightly. Discipleship. So we're about forming disciples.
That's it.
Yeah. So
the Great Commission.
The Great Commission. Yeah. That's right.
Yes,
that's
sir.
right.
We are here to forward the kingdom.
That's right.
In whatever small way that we can.
Yeah. So we usually give updates, mind, body, spirit. So I think maybe that's where we'll go from here. But this is season 2. So season 1, 30 videos.
Yeah.
2,600 views, 84 subscribers. So we're trying to get to 100 subscribers. So if you're watching and you want to follow along, you know, help us get to that 100.
Yep.
Yeah.
We actually have a goal going into the season.
Yeah.
Because, you know, for the first season, it was like, what does success even look like? And it's like, well, whatever God does, we fine with it. You know, hopefully he breathes on this thing and it grows, but whatever. It's more about the right people watching it at the right time versus a ton of people watching.
Yeah, and we don't have no control over who's going to see it when and under what conditions. So I mean, it gives us freedom, right? I guess to be able to create.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from a biblical aspect, it talks about, some sow seeds and some water, but God gives the increase.
I'm a guess. Should I guess what that is?
You can do it. You can do it.
I think that's in 1 Corinthians. One plants, the other waters. God gives the increase.
That's right. That's right. And so, like, really, any results are out of our hands.
Yeah.
In another, everybody, well, I don't say everybody know this, but people know this. There was a scene where Jesus was talking to a massive group of disciples, and he talked about eating his flesh and drinking his blood, and a lot of people left. And then there was a few left, a few remained, and he was like, "Are you going to leave too?"
Yeah. And
that led to when he was asking, like, "Who do you say I am?" He's like, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of God." And he called him out. He's like, flesh and blood has not revealed this to you. Because so basically, it's almost like you can't lead somebody to salvation. Like we can sow seeds, we can throw water on it, but that has to come from above. So it's completely out of our hands. The result is completely out of our hands.
Yeah.
That makes sense? That was clear?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
I got it for sure. Sure.
Yeah, I try not to get too into my webs.
Nah, that was good. That was good.
Awesome.
All right. So maybe we go into mind, body, and spirit updates.
All right. Yeah. We can do it. Want to do mine?
Yeah. I've been thinking a lot about the mind, right? That's where you do your thinking, in the mind.
It's kind of what it's for.
That's what it's for. Yeah. But I thought it might be worth clarifying what we mean by the mind. And I think that's actually a good point. So it's thoughts, the thinking, what's on your mind? What are you thinking about? There's a lot more attention on mental health these days, I think.
Yes.
And I think it's definitely necessary. I personally think mental health is probably one of the biggest challenges we have as a society, humanity. So mental health is super important, especially for men, especially for minority men. It's not something we talk about a lot, but I think it's coming to the forefront more and more these days.
Yeah, it's becoming more acceptable to take care of yourself mentally.
Yeah. And I think we've had to really think about the definition of mental health. So it used to be certain things, that person has mental health problems, like it was a problem.
He crazy.
Right.
Yeah. Those are the ones we label with mental health problems.
That's right.
People who are seemingly acting out, so to speak, or, their behaviors are way out of the realm of what we consider normal. It's like, he got mental health issues. Yeah. But it's much deeper than that.
Yeah. So I think that definition has grown to include things like depression.
Yes.
PTSD. So you think about the military, anxiety. So I talk a lot about anxiety personally, something I've struggled with, but.
Where you at now?
Oh man. I'm good. I have, awareness I think is important.
That's right.
I've had to learn about myself. I mentioned this on the last video. A big part of my mental health is my physical health. So it's all connected.
That's right.
I've learned about myself that if I start to have anxiety, panic attacks, like it does get kind of serious sometimes. I've noticed that I haven't worked out. So it's been days and I haven't worked out.
Yeah.
I've learned that in the wintertime, I start to get a little bit gloomy. And that's because I have a vitamin D deficiency.
Okay.
So I have to say, have I been taking my vitamin D? So I have to be aware of it. I think it's a big part of it. And then intentional about, I got to make sure I work out. I got to make sure I'm reading. And I think we'll get to reading here in a second, but, and then make sure I'm working out.
Yeah.
But all that to me falls into mental health. What do you think? What's your?
Well, they are all, none of them exist in a vacuum because your spiritual health impacts the other two. Your mental health impacts the other two, and your physical health impacts the other two. So it's one of those situations where all three of them need to be healthy.
Yeah.
2 out of the 3, and I don't want to, how do I say it? What's the clearest way to say it? If you got 2 checked off and the third one's not checked off, those 2 that are checked off are going to possibly be deteriorating. I think that's a clear way to put it.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, you definitely need to be working on all 3. I ain't gonna say all 3 of them need to be good, but you need to be progressing in all 3 areas.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, and the progress in one area may not match the progress in the others, but as long as you got some habits and some actions in place, that's the best you can do.
Yeah. Yep. Agree. So I've had to really think about what is mental health. And I think it's the mind, it's your thoughts, having healthy thoughts. I've done a lot of reading. We talk a lot about these different books, but I thought there was 3 books in particular that I've come across that have been, I think, beneficial when it comes to thinking and your thoughts and the mind. So I thought I might share just 3 of these books in particular, but they're really common books. They're books that most people have heard of. But for me, As a Man Thinketh, very common. This one is a short read, but I just read this.
How short?
Let's see. It is
short for some, ain't short for all.
September 24th was my date on that one. So 24 pages.
Yeah, so essentially
a weekend, an afternoon.
That's right. That's right. I mean, reading on a lunch break, you can knock it out in a couple of days.
Yeah.
2 to 3 days.
Yeah. So very common, As a Man Thinketh, but talks about just having healthy thoughts, thought and purpose, the effect of thought on the body. It says the body obeys the mind. So anybody interested in just, the thinking and the mind, I think that's definitely a good one. So very popular. That's a good one.
And thoughts lead to habits.
Thoughts
and
behaviors.
behaviors.
And behaviors. I think it all starts in the thoughts, personally. So that's one, very common again. Think and Grow Rich, right?
Not as short.
Not as short.
I've read that one too. That's a really good one.
Yeah, it's short in stature, but not
not in width.
Right. So it's 350 or so pages. But another one, very common. It's a definition of faith in this one. I think is pretty good. So again, very common, but it talks about thinking and growing. I think really is what it's about, and then as a result of that, you may get rich. So I think it's really more so about thinking and the growth that comes from the thinking.
And the rich isn't always material.
Yeah, good point.
That's right. So there's lots of other forms of wealth out there.
That's right.
Some people say your health is your wealth.
I definitely think that.
You can have you can be Scrooge McDuck, but if you only got 2 days to live, what you gonna do?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You gonna swim in your gold. Time expired.
They have to roll you out of there.
Yeah, that's right, man.
Can't take it with you.
That's it. Hell yeah.
So Think and Grow Rich is a good one. Another thinking book, and then the third thinking book is The Power of Positive Thinking. So another very popular one. This one is definitely a Christian book. This is Norman Vincent Peale, but positive thinking, actually believing that God is with you.
Yes.
Remembering your key scriptures, whatever they are. Be still and know that I am God, which is what I wear. Whatever it is for you, but actually having positive thoughts and beliefs about your circumstances. It's one thing to read and think about it, but applying it to your circumstances. So I would call this not just Christianity, but applied Christianity is what I would say. So those are 3 of my top thinking books that I would say.
So I've read the other 2, the first 2 you went through. I want to say I started that one. I can't remember because it would have been 9-10 years ago. I think I started it, didn't finish it.
Okay.
But positive thinking, basically the way you frame things, will determine the outcome.
Say more.
Because let's look at something like a parent-child relationship. If your child just thinks, if they frame it as, mama and daddy is just so unfair. Every decision you make, they're going to be second guessing it because they already predetermined that it's unfair.
Yeah. It's the paradigm.
Yeah, that's
the
right.
paradigm.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
That's absolutely it.
So that's, I'm still doing my reading. I don't read as much. It's not as heavy. And I said in the last video, I was going to kind of come down out of the clouds a little bit.
Didn't you purchase some books since then?
Yeah. I got some other books over here. I'll just mention a couple other things. This probably gets into the spirit a little bit, but it's a book, so we'll keep it in mind.
Yes.
But a couple practices. Again, it's not just about reading; it's the practice, it's the application. So I thought it might be worth mentioning devotional I'm doing. No More Excuses, the 90-day devotional for men from Tony Evans. We talked a lot about Kingdom Man.
Yes,
from Tony Evans. We may get into maybe more of a deep dive on Kingdom Man at some point.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. I could definitely see that happening. But this has been good. This one is 90 days, but it's, it takes 10, 15 minutes to read. He's got New Testament, Old Testament, but after every day, he has a pretty heavy question. So this is kind of getting into the deep end a little bit. So I'm actually doing that now. And then something else I started doing was a gratitude journal. So this is invest a few minutes a day. So it's, doesn't take long. This is actually the second one that I'm doing. It's a 90-day journal. Last one took me a year to finish, but I keep coming back to it.
Yes.
And I really have noticed some positive changes, some improvements. So those are two things, just trying to keep positivity, positive thinking about your circumstances. So that's mine.
I like that.
What else would you say?
So reading, still reading Bonhoeffer.
Okay.
I've slowed, that's a few pages a week right now. I'm reading Miles Monroe, Power of Prayer.
Okay.
And I started, it's not a fun book, but it's a short book. It's called The Fred Factor. You ever heard of that one?
Mm-mm.
So the whole premise of The Fred Factor is there are no mundane jobs. There's just people doing jobs in a mundane way.
Mm.
The book gets his name because the author is a speaker. And when he moved to Denver, the first day after he moved in, his postmaster came over to meet him, like the guy delivering the mail. And his name was Fred.
Mm.
And Fred was just like over the top as far as trying to create the best experience for him. Like, hey, my name's Fred. I deliver your mail. When somebody new comes to the area, I just like to meet them, kind of see what are they into? What do you do for a living? How can I best serve you? Turns out the guy was a speaker. So he travels a lot. Fred asked, so you must travel a lot. He's like, yeah, I travel about 170 to 200 days a year. So right off the bat, Fred's like, well, when you're out of town, I'll just bundle your mail. So when you're here, I'll just bring it to you. And the speaker's like, nah, you don't have to do all that. In his mind, it's like, nah, that's just too much. You don't have to do all that. And Fred was like, well, this is what I'll do. I'll put the mail in your box. When it gets to the point that no more mail goes in there, I'll just bundle the rest. Because, thieves in the area, they look for overstacked mailboxes. They know you're out of town, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, from the first instance, Fred is just trying to deliver the highest level of service to somebody else that he can.
Yeah.
And so the whole book is about no matter where you at, no matter what job you have, do it at the best of your ability, relate with people, find a way to increase your value without having to spend money, just thinking and being creative.
Mm-hmm.
And he shares a whole lot of stories about, because of course, this is his experience. So when he goes on the road speaking, you start talking about Fred, and people would send him stories, send him mail, this is my experience with a funny Fred, somebody who, went above and beyond just to make us smile, or someone who was a service Fred, they went above and beyond just to make sure we were taken care of. Yeah. So it's a short book. It's like 80 pages.
What's the name of it again?
The Fred Factor.
The Fred Factor. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so you're still reading?
Yes.
All right. Morning time, nighttime, anytime?
Anytime.
Okay.
So, anytime. Like usually it's in the evening. In the evening. I don't do any reading in the morning anymore. It's just it works for my schedule. That's one thing. You have to figure out what works for your schedule, and when are you going to be able to retain it? Because if you can only read at night, but you fall asleep, and then the next night you got to read back over everything you already read, it's probably not the best option.
I used to be that way, and then now I realize if I'm not retaining something, I just put it down and say, you know what, let me try it again tomorrow.
That's it, man. Some days take more out of you than you really expected, or more than you even realize. So it's just like, nah, that bandwidth not there tonight.
Yeah.
So
awareness, again, that awareness. Knowing yourself, self-awareness.
That's right, man. I think that's it for mine.
Let me see if I did take a couple notes. What is the mind? Mm-hmm. What is mental health? Bonhoeffer, you mentioned.
Yes.
That is one book that I carry with me. So it's a heavy read. This is all about discipleship.
Yes.
Very influential, really, to a lot of different people. So not everybody has the interest, the desire. So I don't recommend this for everybody. But I know that you can handle it. So anyway, I do carry this it's always in the car if I'm with the kids and need to grab something. I tend to grab the Bonhoeffer.
Question for you. Mm-hmm. Reading habits. Do you highlight your books and write notes in your books? Do you take notes at all when you're going through books?
Yeah. So I've tried the Kindle before.
Yes.
I personally like to have the books in my hand.
I do too.
I underline kind of the key sections of a paragraph. and then I'll put an asterisk with a circle around it if it's something important. And now I'm doing exclamation point. So I'm developing my own little system. That's more
important right there. Yeah.
That's really important. And if it's two exclamations,
you're going to need your own legend.
I might need my own legend at some point.
That's right, man.
I honestly keep the kids in mind, man. Like who knows if they'll end up reading this kind of stuff, but if they ever do, I want them to see what dad was thinking, or is not that I'll be anywhere, but is thinking. And my dad did that too. So as I'm reading his stuff, I can see what he underlined.
That's right.
So that's my habit.
Awesome.
What's yours?
So I do highlight. Yeah, I highlight a lot.
Okay.
And I learned this. Can't remember where I learned it from. So essentially, and I don't do this all the time, but I need to incorporate it more. So highlighting what you read. So when you pick the book up again, all you got to do is go through the previous pages, just looking at your highlights, and that that basically kickstarts like, hey, this is everything that you pulled in yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't do that all the time. I do it sometimes, but I mean, it really does work.
Okay.
Yeah, it really works. But I'm big on highlighting.
Are you a physical reader or a tablet?
Yes, yes. If it's fiction, like a fun book, I can do an audio book. I can just listen to it. As far as I have read a book or two just using like a PDF, just reading on the screen or whatever. I'm not a big fan of it. I like the physical book in my hand. So yeah, that's what I do. I'm big on highlighting.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. So mine, mental health. I think we covered that one.
You want to tell them? You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't. About what?
The panel.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Mental health, right? So I'm pretty new on the job. I did take a new job.
Brand new.
Brand new.
Yeah.
Yep. I did also pause school, so we may get into that at some point. But this has been just the day-by-day discernment process. So on a new job's going well, learning a lot. But a good friend of mine actually asked me to be on a panel last week, and it was about mental health.
Yeah.
So it was a really good panel. We had a licensed clinical therapist come in, and a lot of good feedback after the panel. But I think a lot of people are thinking the same kind of thing. As at one point you didn't talk about it, but now it's becoming more of an I won't call it an issue, but something that needs to be talked about, and it needs to be discussed, especially for minority men. So
it was like taboo.
Definitely.
Like you knew Uncle Johnny was off, but nobody acknowledged it.
Mm-hmm.
Like we'd all be sitting around the table just looking at each other sideways, but nobody would say anything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, now it's more acceptable. To speak out on those things, because I mean, ultimately, like people need help.
Yeah,
people need help. So yeah.
So don't suffer in silence.
Yeah, that's right.
Men, women, don't suffer in silence.
That's right.
Talk to somebody.
Find somebody.
Yep. We all, there's nothing wrong with it. We all work through something.
Yep. At some point, everybody needs somebody to talk to. Isn't that a song?
If it ain't,
we need to make it.
Yeah. So that's mine. I think that's good.